What is up, everybody? This is Joe Adams, and welcome to the Relentless Pursuit podcast. As always, we have my man Logan Hyder of Cinema 83 in the house, my co-host, my producer, all the good stuff.
For some reason, I always want to say hola. I don't know why. I have no idea why. Hola.
Recent events in Hawaii might be stuck on your brain.
Hola?
No? Yeah, I don't know.
Isn't that...
No, wait, that's... Shit. I fucked that up. Nice. That's Spanish.
Nice.
My bad. Dang it. I'm thinking aloha. God. I'm in... Anyways.
Oh, Lordy.
All right. And from there, and we would like to reintroduce our wonderful friend, Rachel Benton.
Oh, that's new.
Yeah. We got the sounds now. We got the soundboard now. So, hola.
Yeah, that was an accidental discovery, and also I have to always play Joe's favorite one.
Nice.
Yeah, that one feels good every day.
Until
That
the
feels-
audience is vomiting from that sound, we're going to keep playing it.
That feels more on topic and brand for what we're talking about today. It feels a little
does.
woohoo and fun and magical. So I like it.
It is a magical topic that we have going on.
Yeah.
And also welcome Michelle. Y'all can't see her, but Michelle is hanging out with Rachel today, just hanging out and sitting in and seeing how this all goes.
Yes, our dear friend Organi Nanny.
Organi Nanny in the house.
Yeah.
So, Rachel, obviously, for those that have been following this podcast for some time, she was probably about halfway through the podcast, close to halfway. Yeah, a little bit before the halfway mark of this podcast. So, probably like episode 20 or something like that, 20-something. But she's back, and we broke down a bunch of stuff that she's, her life and got her story and a little bit of what she does. But now we're bringing her back for what she's most passionate about, and that is human design. So go ahead and tell us what human design is, Rachel.
And maybe a reintroduction.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. Just for the people who didn't watch the other episode.
Yeah.
Who are you? What do you do? Et cetera, et cetera. Just a little bit.
So I'm Rachel Benton, and the episode before took you through the history of me and my evolution. And so I started out this lifetime very business focused, very monetary focused, figuring out the material plane. But there was always this piece of me that was striving and had a desire for something that was a little more deep. And so I was always into yoga and meditation and mindfulness. And throughout my journey, I got the beautiful honor to purchase a business called Nashville, which is all about sensory deprivation. Our goal there is really to educate people about their nervous system and about awareness of their nervous system, how to heal the nervous system. Because if we can really start to heal that, we can start to embody our physical body and allow that to be our guide and our wisdom. And on my journey a little bit before Float Nashville came into the picture, human design found me as well. And the human design system, a lot of people know astrology and a lot of people know Enneagram and all of these other modalities and tools that help you learn about yourself. And human design is just that. It's a way for you to learn about how you're energetically designed and made up so you can really learn to drop into your body and feel safe in your body so your body can be your wisdom and be your guide. And in our culture, specifically in the United States and Western culture, we're conditioned to really be mental. And we take pride in being analytical and mental. And that is how I feel like I am.
Yeah.
And that's why human design spoke to me so loudly, because it is a mix of all of these modalities, but it's a very analytical and scientific system that allows you to learn how the body operates. So then your mind can understand a story. So then it feels safe to drop into the body. And so it's a practice that allows you to be body-led in your experience in this lifetime. And yes, your mind is still a powerful tool, but it becomes that. It becomes a tool. It helps you to quit overthinking all the decisions and be like, no, like this is my intuition. This is what's leading me. And because human design found me first, that's when Float Nashville came, I knew in my body this is right. My brain could not make sense of it. It literally, if I told you what I was doing, you'd be like, you're crazy. What are you doing? But my body knew, because I had practiced human design and I understood how my body spoke to me intuitively what was right. And literally, I say it every week, Float Nashville is the biggest gift that I was ever given in this lifetime from Spirit, because it's given me the audience and it's reintroduced me to the beauty of humanity, because the people that business attracts are beautiful people. And I feel like right now we all feel like the world is chaotic, but I'm telling you, it's filled with beautiful people that have good hearts and good intentions all around us. Those people just aren't seen and heard.
Yeah.
And that place shows me, no, the world is still good.
Oh, without a doubt. And that we're able to, expose people like that through this podcast, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we talked about this, just you and I recently, talking about how, the podcast has that kind of impact. And that's why I've been so passionate about this project, because I'm able to like connect with individuals on that kind of level and just see that beauty in it. And I think it's really cool. And, you talking about finding human design and then that going into Float Nashville and just having all this confidence with it and following that intuition. I mean, I remember, so after I want to bring up when you did the first human design reading on me, it was real brief, but it was,
and you knew me years ago. So we got introduced before Float Nashville.
Yeah.
I was actually the first time I met you coming from a business network meeting. I mean, I was still in the thick of analytical mind, in the thick of the business world. I hadn't got the gift of Float Nashville to be able to merge my intuitive side with business, but human design was still my baby then. It was like I was really deep into it. So when we met that first time. Yeah,
I remember your husband Brian being like, Joe, you need to meet my wife. She'll talk to you, she'll help you out a little bit. And I was like, okay. And I just, people that have followed this podcast is right after I'd gone through that really bad breakup and everything, and lost all my shit and whatever. And so I was having just a pretty hard time just figuring it out, because my whole world flipped upside down. And so got some drinks with you guys, and then you just talked to me about human design a little bit. And I was like, holy crap.
We did a whole chart reading in the middle of the goat, and it was great.
It really stuck with me though too. And just, what I grasped from it then was that at the end of the day, we're all designed to be a certain way. That's just how we are, right? And it's not about, to me, it's not about necessarily fixing this about yourself, but it's learning how to understand that about yourself in order to like go through life. If you have a deeper understanding, it makes things a lot easier, not just like taking something that's part of your design and being like, well, I got to change it because this person thinks I should. And so it showed me that like, oh man, if you can just have a relationship with someone and have a better understanding of each other's design, then you can work together. And I saw that in you and Brian's relationship. And I've, ever since sitting down with y'all that time, it's something I brought up multiple times to people. And like, I've talked about y'all's relationship and just that understanding of one another. And it's really applied to the rest of my life. And it's been cool,
Really cool. And really cool how you and Brian found each other, because that was crazy. And then really cool that you and Brian ended up at dinner that night, because my husband has such a passion. I mean, we didn't find each other until he was like 38. So he was later in life. He was single. He got married early. That only lasted for about a year. And then he spent, so from 21 to 38, he was single. And he was like, just so sure that it doesn't have to be like everyone, relationships don't have to be as hard as everybody seems that they have to be. And if it has to be that hard, I don't want any part of it.
Yep.
And so when we found each other, it was pre-human design, but we both still had this innate wisdom of like, well, there was this chemistry between us that attracted us and was very helpful. But even through that chemistry, our relationship was easy, but there was also some things that were under the surface and mask.
Yeah.
So an example of that would be, he is very, to make his soul feel alive, he has to have a lot of things going on at one time, to the point where for me, I would literally physically die if I did everything that he did. And so before I knew human design, when he would come home with this new thing, well, I wanted to support him. I wanted to be as excited as him. And so physically, I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Like, yeah, that's great. Inside, I'm dying. And I'm like, how is he going to do this? How am I going to birth this child? He's flipping. And I mean, this man does it all, right?
Yeah.
And then when I'm postpartum, I have anxiety, I'm worried about my husband, I find human design and I read his chart and I'm like, oh shit, this makes total sense. He's built and wired to handle all of these things. And I'm actually wired completely opposite than him. So then it transmuted this internal anxiety into deep respect for him and honor. So now, like literally when he comes to me, the universe works on vibration. So even if I'm physically being like, oh, I'm so excited for you, but inside I'm dying. The universe feels me dying.
Yeah.
It doesn't care if I'm smiling and being verbally supportive. It's energetically, I wasn't lining up with what I was verbally saying. But human design transmuted that anxiety that I had when he would come to me with like honor and respect, like, oh, wow. Like, okay, here's another thing coming to you. I know you're a badass. You can take it on. Like, I fully, that's a completely different energy.
Yeah.
And that alone transformed our marriage. And then for the flip side, well, I don't do 100 things. I'm a badass and I'm successful and I can do things well, but not all at one time.
Of course.
And I need deep, deep rest. And so we'll go in a little bit and talk about all the different energy designs so the listeners can listen to this with intent. And we will also put in the show notes, I'll give you a link so you guys can all run your own charts. So it's great if you I might even plug this in, but if you just Google human design and you go to Jovian Archive, it'll be like the second thing that pops up. If you put in your birth information, it'll pop you out a free chart. So as you're listening to this episode, you can reference who you are as you're listening. So then you can have some aha moments just in this hour together, however long the podcast is. That's a great way to listen to this information. Or later you can find it in the show notes or something like that. But for me, I need really deep rest cycles. So on the weekends when he's cleaning out the garage and painting the trim and doing and all these things, I don't have to shame myself any longer and make myself match him to feel successful and a supportive spouse. He can say, and now we speak to each other. Like, he's like, Rachel, go take a nap. What are you doing? Why are you keeping yourself? Like, I want to be doing all these things. Go rest.
Yeah.
He'll encourage me because 7 years in of this experiment, my mind will still shame me. Like, what are you doing? You got to be productive. Get it together. Like, do what you know what I mean? I'll still compare and shame. And he's like, hey, you look like shit. You got to go rest. And I'm like, oh, thanks. See you in a couple hours. You know what I mean?
I get that.
So yes, we were great and we had amazing chemistry before, but human design really helped fill in the cracks of our foundation to make it really unbreakable. And that's really where I was experimenting with the system in the beginning.
That's really cool. And I see a lot of similarities there, like you're talking about in like my relationship now, or like, well, even in the past, right? You know, I think you brought this up. You talked about he had to try everything, you know, and I remember talking to you that evening about like, I need to try this thing and that thing. And you're like, Joe, you're the kind of person that needs to at least attempt everything. It doesn't mean everything's going to stick with you, but with that attempt and then giving everything a shot, you're going to find what you're passionate about. And some of it you're going to keep holding on to. Some of it you're just going to let go, but you got to try it all. I think you said something along those lines. I don't know if that makes sense, but I was like, man, that I would always get shit for having to try everything. Like, you don't got time for that. Or no, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? It's ridiculous. You're not going to stick with it. And it's like, well, some things I'm going to be hooked on. Some things I'm not, but I got to try everything in life. I mean, I'm here for the experience as well, but just that understanding of myself, now I can move forward and, you know, work with, you know, Lydia in our future and have that understanding of one another. So, and she doesn't give me crap. She's like, all right. And she does tell me to get some rest sometimes, that's for sure. But
well, and we all as humans really do need rest.
But I always got to stay busy and be like in the middle of all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and that's because I think maybe we could transition into the types really quick so we can go through and be like, okay, if you're this type, this is what it looks like. Because the whole point of this is we're all wired very, very drastically different. And when you can really understand that and have an awareness of that, you can apply that in your life and also give other people in your life grace, including your spouse, including your children.
Yeah.
Not all of your children are going to be wired the same. Not all of your children can have the same routines and rhythms. One of your children can go straight from school to straight to after school soccer. The other one needs a break and maybe doesn't need after school stuff and maybe just needs something on the weekends or one day a week, right?
But like, what's the fun if everybody's wired the same anyways, right?
Yeah.
But you want everybody to be different, but because we're individuals. But at the end of the day, like, instead of getting frustrated, you can have an understanding, and then things are a lot more at peace.
Because
we're not wired the same, but they're this way, and I understand them a lot better.
Yeah.
And we work together really well now.
Yep. Because the brain needs a story, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I can say everyone's wired differently, but my ego thinks I'm wired the best. So I'm going to get frustrated when people in my inner circle aren't doing the things how I do them because my ego thinks I'm doing it the best. Where human design's like, hey, here's the map. Here's physical proof for your mind to capture a story of why they're doing the way they're doing it so your brain can understand it and shut up. and take a back seat, because the brain wants stories. It wants deep understanding. It wants the analytics. So it can so it can just be like, okay, I got the story I need. I'm going to hush now.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have a story, it's going to keep interrupting. Well, why aren't they doing it this way? Why do they view, like, that's crazy. They view life this way. And it shows up all the time, from partnerships, from friendships, from business, from, all of the political stuff we have going on right now. Like, it shows up and shows up and shows up, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that you need to be passive. Some of us are wired to be more vocal and wired to be like, wait a minute, this isn't right.
Yeah.
But then they can stop getting pissed off for those people that aren't wired to be vocal.
Of course.
Not all of us need to be doing the same thing, right? So the system just gives your mind the story and the blueprint. And I think an example we talked about last time we talked was like, an analogy I love is to think like your human body, you've been in it your whole life. You know it better than anybody, right? Yeah. And it's like your vehicle for this lifetime. But if you've been driving that vehicle for 45 years and then finally you open the glove box and you get a user manual and you're like, oh shit, I've got a Bluetooth and I've got cruise control and I've got all these features that I didn't understand how to use. I'm still driving the car the same way. I'm still physically in the body the same, but how I operate within the body becomes easier, more enjoyable to quote unquote drive the car, right? To be in the body. So that's the point of the necessity, or necessity is not the right word, but the benefit of learning human design is to be able to give your brain the understanding of all the nuances within your chart. Now, I will say it can be it's a very extensive system because it wraps astrology, I Ching, quantum physics, chakras, like it wraps it all in, and it can be very intimidating for people. But my gift as a teacher is to take this most intimidating system and break it down into kindergarten language, because you can take from this podcast today, whatever nugget I give you, you can take it and transmute and transform your life without knowing another hour of information. And I know that to be true for the hundreds of people that I've talked to the system about, because it can be so easy. We don't have to complicate it. And so that's what we'll do today. I'm not going to go into all of it. Like, I know you and I have had extensive stuff and there's still so much we can talk about, but I want to keep it really high level, really digestible for people so they can pull up their chart for free. They can look at it and be like, oh, let me fast forward to where Rachel was talking about generators. That's a type. And like, what did she say about generators? And then I'm just going to sit with that information until my body wants to learn more.
Yeah.
And that's enough.
Yeah, and they can share it with their partner or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
have fun with it.
Yeah, let's talk about
it. And if
this.
you want to have a reading, find me. Like, I'm in Nashville. I can do Zoom. I can do whatever. I can do relationship overlays. I can get with you and your children. Like, we can go deeper, and I love to go deeper with people. But I just don't want people to pull up their chart and be like, this is very overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, we did the Zoom call, and you did the chart, did my chart along with like my families and stuff. And it was just really cool. I got home and I was telling Lydia about it. I was like, oh yeah, did you know, like, our hearts connect each other and all this stuff? And I told her about that whole conversation. I was like, that's really freaking cool. So it's exciting
I hope
stuff.
she watched the Zoom. I hope, it was really fun to have that call. It's really fun. And you probably felt it on the call, but like, that's where I get really excited, because I can see all the little things in the chart that like, oh, this makes sense. This makes sense. Why you show up like you do as a dad, why the purpose is there in that relationship with that child. And I also want to say, there's so many, I guess it's the mind creating chaos in a story, but like, none of us, there's no one listening to this, there's no one in this room that's going to miss their purpose. So human design isn't going to be like, here's your purpose, go do it. You can't miss your purpose. Even if you've never heard about human design, you're going to live your purpose. You're going to find your purpose. You're going to find what lights you up. But human design makes it to where it's easier on the process, right?
Yeah.
The journey to getting there doesn't have to be so difficult. It's like, I see that picture behind you. What is that? A wolf in the snow? So like, if I went into that cold forest in that picture behind me and I didn't have a snowsuit on, it would suck, right? I wasn't ready for that journey. But human design kind of gives me the snowsuit for my journey. So
that's
it's
actually
easier.
a painting of me up there.
I love it.
Yeah, that's me in my element.
Is this your spirit guide? Your spirit animal?
Pretty much, that's me and that's my eyes and everything.
I have a Native American, I don't know, what would she be? I don't know what I would call her, but she's like a Native American. I want to call her a guide, but she's a human. You know what I mean? Like, she's a guide.
Like
she's
a healer or a shaman or something.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't want to call herself that. She's just very
Yeah.
wise, and she does Native American totem poles. I think you'd be really into it. She can give you your spirit totems.
That'd be cool.
You would probably like that.
I'm
Side
down.
note, digressing.
All right.
Okay, so in human design, to get into the complexities, please interject and ask questions so this feels not so mechanical.
This episode is brought to you by Relentless Pursuit. Check us out at relentlesspursuitlifestyle.com, where all of our apparel is, training, and so on. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at relentless_pursuit. For the headquarters stuff, it's at relentlesspursuit_HQ. We're also still running the fundraiser for my man Gardner and it's JT and Garner McGrady. And his son has a very rare disability. We're raising money for them. Check out the GoFundMe at the link below. We're going to be running that until probably about the end of the year, and we're trying to get as much funds as we can up for them as possible. So check that out, and appreciate you.
And for more information about the details of this podcast, if you would like to learn more about human design and meet with me one-on-one or a group session, you can find me at Embodied Abundance HD, so HD for humandesign.com. And then we mentioned Float Nashville as our holistic wellness center, and you can find more about that on Instagram at Float Nashville. And you can also use a discount code FLOAT10, FLOAT10, to get $10 off of your sensory deprivation experience.
Nice. Perfect. That's the best ad read yet.
With human design, there are 5 overarching energy types. Technically, they say 4 and one's broken down, but let's just say 5 to be easy. And I like to communicate that kind of like a lot of us understand astrology enough to know there's 12 sun signs. So the sun signs are like, hey, this is mainly what your energy is about. In human design, there's 5. So you're broken into 5 categories. And so I want to just give high-level overview. So if you pull your chart, which again, you can do that in the show notes below, we'll give a link that you can go get your chart. And you're going to look for what your type says. So it's going to say generator, manifesting generator, projector, manifester, or reflector. So those are the 5 types. And I'm going to give you kind of this high level of what those types mean. So this energy type is how your energy is felt by others and how you operate and are received in the world. So that's very great knowledge to understand and know. And I love for clients to sit on that for a week or two and really just witness their self in the world. And I like to look at human design as a pure experiment. It's fun. Just play with it. Don't take it too serious. You can't do it wrong. And then there's another piece of the system that's called your inner authority, and that's how you make decisions. There's no way that we're going to be able to go through all of those today, but we might give some examples. It's really interesting, Joe, with you and Logan and your wife and your daughter, like all of you guys have this sacral intuition. So we might hit on a few of the energy different decision types so I can explain how that looks in action.
Okay.
But that would be something we can't go super deep in today, and we can't go into the profile, like the personality profiles, but we can do the types, and it's going to give you guys enough to play with and start to see an impact in your day-to-day. Okay, any questions? You want to get into it?
No, I'm ready to get into it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to start with the main type. So if you are a generator, which Logan is a generator, Joe is a generator, Joe's wife is a generator, somehow Joe's child's a generator, all these generators in Joe's life, which are really interesting. But generators actually make up 70% of the population. And for a generator, what makes you a generator, so I don't know if you guys remember me saying that the chakra system is a part of this too. So in your body graph, if you're looking at it, you have all these different shapes and symbols, and those are your energy centers in the body. And there's an energy center in the graph that's a square kind of around your belly button in the chart, and that's called your sacral. And this is your like life force energy that's moving through your body. So as a generator, you have this life force energy. It's almost like you have this battery in your body that turns on every day. And you're like, okay, it's almost like if I charge my cell phone overnight, I've got a full battery because it's ready to go. It's ready to experience life. And so this generator has this energy within their body that's ready to go every day. It's also this like self-charging battery if you all are doing things that you enjoy throughout the day. If it's something that your life force wants to do, you'll feel your energy continue. It's like when we talk, Joe, about I'm like, how's the podcast going? And you're like, I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like it's really a highlight. And that's because your sacral is being renewed through these conversations.
And it's similar for him as well. I mean,
Yes.
especially since you point that out, we're both generators.
Y'all both have that.
We both, like, after a podcast, we're just like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, we get stoked.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
your energy is like self-recharging. So this is your sign and symbol. So the feeling, if you want to define the feeling in the body for a generator, the sign and symbol within the body, remember we're embodying. We're trying to let our body communicate to us. Your body's way of telling you that, like, hey, you're doing the right things is this deep feeling of satisfaction. If your body is not getting self-recharged, you'll feel frustration. I also like people to sit on the words, because sometimes we don't define the words through social conditioning. Like we might, like for me, we'll get to manifestors, but for me, my feeling and my sign and symbol is anger. Well, in my lifetime, I've experienced rage from people, and I would never define a feeling in my body as angry because I don't respect anger, or I didn't respect anger, right? So sitting on your emotions and saying, is that frustration? How would I define that? And it's okay if you have a different word, but allowing, like, getting in tune with how your body feels when things are right and wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's something I can definitely focus on, because I know for sure when I'm frustrated, and it can be often sometimes, you know.
Yeah, and so this is why you'd be frustrated. So as a generator, all of us have auras. Okay, we're going to get a little woohoo here, but bear with me because it is an analytical system, and we'll bring it back to science. But you have an energy around your body, right? Your aura, and your aura as a generator is magnifying things to you. So this podcast is out living in the world, and it's bringing people to you now, right? There might have been a time where you were out having to be the opposite and maybe hustling people to the podcast, and that would feel frustrating.
Yeah.
Because that's out of alignment to how your energy is supposed to be working. Your energy is actually built. So it goes back to that, like, hey, you're here for a purpose. You can't miss your purpose because the energy within your body is literally going to bring your purpose. You just have to surrender and trust it. That's the trick.
So cool.
So surrendering and being like, oh my God, my battery is charged up, but I have to wait. That feels broken. Like I have to wait to respond. What? Like that sucks. So there is a training in it, right? There's a little bit of like, this doesn't feel right the first few times. That's why I say allow it to be a fun experiment and don't take it so serious, because it will quickly prove itself to you. And you'll be like, oh shit, I just waited and all this stuff came to me and this feels like magic and I feel really satisfied. And then you'll go to the next thing maybe a week later and you're going to get the urge to want to create and initiate, and you're going to be like, but wait. Okay, I remember if I just surrender for a minute and wait for something to respond to, I'll get it. And it's going to be better than I could have ever hustled on my own. So that's this trick of the generator is I've got all the energy. I can do it all my own. You can do it all on your own, but are you going to be satisfied doing it all on your own? And the answer is absolutely not. You will thrive by waiting to respond. And then I'm going to take it back to kind of step 2. So on everyone's chart, you're going to see your inner authority. Your inner authority is your body's intuitive wisdom on how it makes decisions. Everyone's going to be different. There's like 8 different authorities. Everyone at this table is a sacral, not everyone at this table, I'm not, but you all at this table are sacral authority. Even Michelle is a sacral authority. Go Organi Nanny. But these sacral authorities, so what you're doing is, so as a generator, you're waiting to respond. It doesn't mean a human's coming to you. It could be an email. It could be something you're on a podcast. It could be a billboard that sparks your mind. It could be a number on a clock. I don't know, whatever you're into. Like you'll get this feeling of like, oh yes, I need to go do that. Or, you know.
So like inspiration or opportunity.
Inspired.
Or both.
Yeah. It could be, it's just something to respond to, right? So what I see work in action for people is like, if you're feeling stuck and frustrated, go get yourself out in public. Can you go to a network meetup? Can you go to a small group? Can you go find people to be in front of?
Yeah.
And that will help kind of re-energize. Get it going again, right?
Yeah.
But so when something comes to you to respond to, it doesn't mean you have to say yes to everything, right? You shouldn't. You got to check in with the body. All right, this thing came to me. How does it feel? And for you all with sacral, so if your chart says sacral, that means we talked about that energy center. There's a very like gut yes or no, and a very intuitive hit. Like when people are like my intuition just I don't know. I just intuitively knew. I had a gut feeling. The word would say, I had a gut feeling. This is what they're talking about. The sacral is like, yes, I want to do this. No, I don't. And it's very apparent, but it can also speak back to you. So if you had an invitation like, hey, Joe, I'm having a parking lot party at Float Nashville. Would you want to have a booth? It's $100 a booth. You probably in that moment would know yes or no. Yeah. But if you were like, oh, I don't know, I need to think about it, you can ask yourself, away from me. You know what I mean? Like you can make intuitive decisions in the moment, but if you didn't make it in the moment or you felt confused in the moment, you can go back and say, do I want to do that parking lot party? And just listen to the body. Yes or no? Yes or no?
It's interesting you brought that up because this past weekend, a good friend of ours had a little event and I was like, you know, they've been very supportive and I'm like, yeah, I'll go set up. And, you know, because it's like, oh, come on, they always support us. Da, da, da. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then it just like got closer and I'm like, man, I'm so spread thin. Yeah. Like that's really going to like.
And listen to what you said there.
Yeah.
What made you say yes? The mind story.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the body.
But my gut is like, Joe, don't do it because you're just going to be so stressed out.
And the mind's like, but what if they stop supporting you?
Yeah.
Right? And that's when it's like, shut up, mind, because my body is wise.
Yeah. And then I made a phone call. I was like, hey, man, like, listen. I am maxed out. And he was like, dude, just your support, man. Like it was really cool and smooth. You know, people are going to understand. But at the end of the day, yeah, I should have just listened to that.
That was a win.
Yeah, true.
You didn't go get frustrated. Because listen to what could have happened. You could have went to the networking event. You could have set up the booth. You could have been frustrated and pissed off. And then all of a sudden, Joe, who they thought Joe was, isn't who Joe is. Why is Joe bringing that negative energy to my setup? And it could have made everything worse when you were just there because you want to make everything better. You see the trick of it?
Good point.
So it's like you just discovered through that experiment, your body's wise and it's not going to make things worse for you.
Oh, yeah.
Dude was understanding.
Yeah, it was perfect.
See?
And so it worked out well.
With the experiment of human design, you learn in reflection. So it's like, okay, let my body be the sign and symbol of when I need to pause. It's like a red light. Like, hey, stop sign, Joe. You feel frustrated. So just like what you did, why do I feel frustrated? Look back like, oh yeah, when he was inviting me, my brain was telling me that I need to go because I need to support. What did my body say? Oh, my body said no. Okay. Proof to me that going forward, like luckily you stopped before you went to the event. Most of us would have just been so caught up and miserable at the event, pissed off. Like, you know what I mean? Like just internally having a battle. You've been listening to your body outside of human design for a long time. So luckily you're in tune. But you see how the system can really get us there, right? It can really start to allow us to trust, like, okay, this chart says I'm sacral. I'm going to start listening to my gut more and really trust it and experiment with and let it show me it's right.
And I did that, and it worked out.
So
cool.
Yep. Okay, so that's what generators are here for. Believe in your aura energy. Know that things are going to magnetize to you. Get rid of the language of society that you've got to hustle and grind. Good things only come to those who work hard. Release all of the preconditioned, pre-programmed messages that your mind is reciting to you over and over and over, and listen to the body. Something was said. I went to a flotation conference for float therapy, and it's all these really wide, I'm talking neuroscientists and it's just an amazing event to go to. And on the stage, somebody was doing a talk, and they were like, you know, we talk about our five senses all the time, but we don't talk about the sixth sense. And in Buddhism, they speak of the sixth sense. And what this sixth sense is, it's the mind. Thinking is a sense. It's sensory information. But because the mind is within us, we tend to put more stock on what the brain thinks than what the nose smells. So if the nose smells a lemon, I don't all of a sudden think I'm a lemon. It's very clear to me that this is outside of my body. I'm just enjoying the smell. Yeah. But if this thought is in my mind and I'm like, I have to hustle hard to be successful, good things don't come to me, I have to go find them, we take that as truth because it's coming from within. But if we can stop and observe that and be like, oh, that's just data for me to feel within my body, that's the game changer.
I was just going to say real quick on in mindfulness and meditation, and obviously what you're talking about too, one of the big things is identifying, or actually not identifying with your thoughts and your feelings, right? And that's been like really difficult for me. And I said it a couple times on the podcast, but this was like one of the best revelations that ever came to me, I thought. But because I just didn't understand like why I have such difficulty, and somebody else that I listened to has said things like, if you're thinking like especially deeply negative things about yourself. You're not born that way. Someone put that in your head. And so it's like, well, yes, I believe that and that makes sense to me, but also, so why is it so hard when that pops up to just say no to it? And so I say all that to say that at some point I realized the difficulty is that those demons come with your voice. So how do you know whenever it could say, because sometimes I'll hear something that's positive about me. I'm like, well, that is my voice. But that same voice is the one saying the negative things, and it can be very, very difficult to differentiate between, because it sounds the same. Like, to your point, it's coming from within here.
Guess what you are? Is you're the wisdom witnessing those thoughts. You have the power to choose how you want to program. We talk about AI and all this shit coming out, right? So I've been sitting on like, whoa, this is really going out there. But like, if we could start to look at our bodies as things we program.
I don't think it's going out there. I mean, video games are the same thing. There's RPG games, right? Like I just started playing one, but there's skill trees that you develop, and there's, the more you talk to people, the more your speech skill goes up, and like. Okay,
and your body's the same way.
Yeah.
So if you can look at the thoughts, it's not that one thought is you and one thought's not you. The thought is the programming coming in, and it's what program do you want to put into your vehicle of your body? What programming do you want? And it's starting to be selective. And we talk about, so think about all 6 senses. Now we're going to talk about 6 senses because we do believe that the thought is the 6th sense. Yeah. So how can you be really mindful on all of those senses? You guys do it here. What food do you put in your body? What books do you consume through your visual? What people do you, right? We see the programming everywhere else. The thoughts are the same. So it starts to become an experiment. Don't take it so serious. Start to witness the thoughts and sit in the fact that you're the power watching them, and you can say, nope, that one's not for me. Because what happens is, you're right. What that person was saying is the thoughts that you're thinking that are negative about yourself were programmed. And they're not actually you. What they mean is, when you were a child, before you had language, you were creating a narrative, and that was your first programming of your human body and your human brain. And you can't necessarily remember when that happened. And that's what we call our subconscious mind. So consciously, you can be like, that's crazy, but until you subconsciously pull that out. Let's go back. Joe and I were talking about this earlier. In my calendar, I have, it is safe for me to be seen and heard. When I was a child, there were things that happened in my lifetime, in my household. It was not safe to be seen nor heard. It was not safe. And so here I go, fast forward, and I'm 34, about to be 35. And I had to give you an Embodied Abundance website because I don't have an Instagram, and I'm in the float tank, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have an Instagram because I haven't felt safe to be seen or heard. And the float tank took me. I was on the stage at FloatCon in front of 100 people on a TPAC stage teaching human design. I've never felt so alive in my life. And my conscious awareness, like, but look, were you safe here?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now my conscious mind is like, no, it is very safe to be seen and heard. So I'm on this podcast today because in my notebook, I say, how can I be seen and heard this week? Because that's where I'm safe. So it was that float tank allowed me to go to the seat of my intuition, pull out that lie. And you know what? That narrative kept me safe as a child. I wasn't seen very much, and I stayed safe. I wasn't heard very much. I was the quote unquote good child. It kept me from really bad things, right? But that is not what I need today to stay safe. I'm an adult, and I don't have to bring that narrative, right?
I did something. It's very similar to this story I did this past weekend, but I was in the gym, and for some reason when it gets dark and I'm just sweating, I'm like, I was going crazy, like doing all kinds of stuff, like banging my head.
Yeah.
I was acting a damn fool. Like my weird side came out, right?
Yeah.
And I'm very
You're
reluctant on
releasing
like letting that out in front of people. I'm like, well, maybe that's just for the people that I'm close to. But then I realized, like, well, no, there's things from my past that have kind of watered me down. But I don't need that anymore. Very similar to you. And so I posted it, and I made a video. I was like, guys, and I talked about it. Like, this is the weird side of me. I am weird as shit. And a lot of y'all probably do think I'm weird. And that's okay, because I need to own it rather than just like worry about what everybody else is going to think of me. And it's very similar to like.
And taking that back to human design, your aura is going to magnetize. Think about a magnet. A magnet attracts and repels. Mm-hmm. There's two sides to it. So all of us have energy, and we all have an aura, and we'll go into what everyone else's aura is. But when something falls off of you, like when something won't stick to your aura, it's not for you. Yeah. So when you're all of you, And you learn like, oh, it's safe for me to be all of me now because I'm an adult and I don't need to have this facade because I can keep myself safe without having to wear all these masks.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick up this piece of me that I dropped as a child to survive. I'm going to reattach to it because that makes me whole. Then you can trust your human design and say, my aura is going to, so as a generator, my aura is going to attract everything I need. And if something's not attracted to me, it is not for me. And release it.
Easy.
Yeah.
So I hate to be this guy, but it is 11:46. You got 11 minutes left in this segment. So
Okay, so we're going to move to manifesting generators. Okay, so for manifesting generators, they're kind of a hybrid of these generators, and how you're different if you're a manifesting generator. You've got the sacral like the generator. Your aura is enveloping like the generator. So same thing. Everything that I just said about the generator is true for the manifesting generator. But what makes the manifesting generator different, and I like to say kind of a hybrid, is if you look at your body graph, you'll see a first square. It's in the throat area. This is your throat chakra. You have that defined by a motor in the chart. So there's intense energy coming to the throat, which means these people are there's no type better. Every type is beautiful, but this manifesting generator embodiment's very powerful because not only do you have this life force energy that you're able to respond to things all day consistently, you can pivot through the voice. So, as generators, we're supposed to wait to respond. Manifesting generators should really wait to respond. But if they feel stuck, remember the generators, I'm like, hey, if you're feeling stuck and frustrated, get in front of people. Manifesting generators can also use this power of informing through their voice to help make things happen a little faster. Manifesting generators are like, my husband's a manifesting generator, so I've experimented well with this type, but Michelle's a manifesting generator, but you move very quickly.
Okay.
It's very like, I don't want to say tornado, but it can feel that way to everyone on your team. So if you're a manifesting generator, you're leading people in business, you're married, you're trying to do things with others, have grace and acceptance that not everyone can be as fast as you. And manifesting generators have a way of quickly starting something, but then they can quickly exit very fast to where it can make everyone, like it happened to me yesterday. I finally get my office decorated in our beautiful office space. And then my husband needs to pivot quickly and use that room that my office just got decorated in for something else. So then he needs to move me to this other office space. So at 4:00 yesterday afternoon, my whole office got destroyed. And then he's watching me work in this chair and he walks and he's like, oh, are you sure you want to be in here? And I look at him and I was like, but I loved my office. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'll move everything back for you tomorrow. There's a way I can use this room. Like, because he's just moving so quickly, he forgets that there's impact for someone else and because I don't have consistent energy. I work in bursts. The fact that it took me 2 months to decorate my office because I don't have the bandwidth to decorate our office, right? So for me to have to undo my office, I did it, and I did it with no feedback negative. I just knew that was important for him, and I did it. But luckily, he came back and saw the disruption and was able to correct that. But the whole point of these manifesting generators is you can move way quicker than everyone else. So have patience for those around you and be mindful as you're moving quickly that you're not whiplashing everyone that's supposed to be supporting you. So using that voice chakra is really important to inform people. Luckily, Brian didn't just say we're moving your office in 5 minutes. He told me 3 weeks ago, and I've had a lot of time. And then yesterday he's like, is there any way you can do it today? So it wasn't like all of a sudden I was moving my office. And luckily I get my old office back, and that's great. But so as manifesting generators, it's just like you, and also you to feel alive really need to be into lots of different things at one time. So some of this human design is alchemizing these negative things. So the world would say, hey, you quit. You don't finish what you start. Always finish what you start. Don't be a quitter. But for a manifesting generator, the power is in the ending. So knowing to pivot and to pivot quickly and not to shame yourself. So those thoughts that are coming in with shame, learn to release them, because you might have been attracted to that book and got a quarter of the way through, and now you just want to cringe when you pick the book up. But it's because your body and your mind got what you needed in the quarter of the book. You don't need to finish the book. Move on. My husband will have a whole car torn apart and then he's over it. I'm like, well, you probably met someone or figured out something And then he'll sell the parts and meets this dynamic partner for something else because he was selling parts and not the whole car. Like, it's really fun to experiment. So start to honor when the body stops you and the life force energy is done. So for these manifesting generators, same thing with generators. The only thing with generators is when your sacral's done, it can take you longer to get out because you've got to wait for that sacral energy to drain completely. So like this podcast, I'm not saying that this is true. You could be done with the podcast, but it could take you another 6 months to a year to finally end it. And then the next 6 months to a year are frustrating. So it's really important for these generators to pay attention to that decision-making process, like we talked about y'all's sacral. But for the manifesting generators, you can pivot quickly. So use that skill set and get out and quit telling yourself it's bad to quit. There's power in the quitting. Okay, so we covered generators and manifesting generators. Yep. Are y'all ready to pivot? Any questions? Good?
No.
Okay, so we're going to go on to the next type, projectors. So on your chart, if your type says projector, you make up 30% of the population. So this is moving more into unique designs. And with uniqueness is rare and it's great, but it also can bring challenges because you don't necessarily fit in with the masses, right? So you're going to be operating differently, which can make it hard to operate with others when you're different because people might not understand you. So I told you my husband and I are wired completely different. This is where it really changed the game for our marriage because I am wired really rare. And my type isn't a projector, it's the next one. But so these projector beings, like if you're a projector, you know, we talked about with the generator and the manifesting generator, they have the sacral center activated and have access to it all the time. As a projector, that sacral, so that at your stomach, that's on your chart is white or what's called open or undefined. And what happens when we have an open chakra center or energy center, we're actually magnifying energy within the body. So these projectors are magnifying the energy of people around them, which means it's a lot on the physical body to have more energy than what the body's really wired to handle. So it's a unique trait and it's a gift, but we have to understand how to balance it. So it's important for the projector, and this is really for all the next three types, your projector, your manifestor, or reflector. It's really important for all three of these types to know that, I'll say we, because I fall into this group too, we do not have sustainable energy. And we work in bursts and waves. And it's very important to have and honor those really deep breath cycles. And as a projector, projectors are really tribal. Projectors are really wise. Like people that are like, wow, you're an old soul. Like, how do you know so much and you're so young? These are usually projectors because they're born with this innate wisdom and knowing that the mind can't understand because the mind wasn't taught. It's almost like they came to this earth with pre-programming for whatever their gifts are. And so they have this innate wisdom, and they also are wired to crave a tribe because they are here to lead. They're a leader of the people. So this trick of this of this projector is you're craving the tribe. So they try to go find the tribe, right? Just like the generator.
Taken advantage of.
Well, they try to just like as a generator, you might go hustle the thing, but it's best if you wait for things to come to you. As a projector, you might go to try to find your people. So like, let's say as a child, you're stuck in a school and the big thing is the basketball team. You might suck at basketball, but you're going to want to join basketball because there's a tribe of people. So as a projector, the trick is don't go find the people. Find you and what lights you up and what makes you feel really good. And you do that publicly and you become like a lighthouse and your people come to you. Your tribe will find you, and those people that find you see your giftings and actually want your wisdom. If you do it the opposite way, you'll find yourself in groups that don't honor your wisdom and you feel really bitter because they don't see your value. So it's really important, and this manifestor is really wise, and their strategy, like the generator and the manifesting generator is wait to respond. The strategy of the projector is wait to be invited.
Okay.
And that's really hard because the projector sees everything that's wrong and they can see details that others can't see. But not only can they see the detail of what's wrong, they can see the solution. They're really smart. And so they feel this urge to want to solution things. They weren't invited to solution. So then they meet the ego of the person that they're trying to solution that shuts them down. And then they get bitter. a trick that I've seen for people that can help you. So if you are this projector and you're like, oh my God, this is what's happening to me at work, I'm never seen, I'm never heard, is remember that yes, you have value and it sucks to have to wait to be invited. A way around that is informing. So this is kind of going outside the bounds of having to surrender and wait for the invitation, but you could go to your boss and be like, hey, I've got some ideas on XYZ project. Do you have time in your schedule to maybe take 15 minutes for me this week? Is that something you want to hear more about? And you're creating the space for the invitation. If they say no, they don't want to hear it, let it be. Don't waste your life force energy, right?
Yeah.
Go find your people. But that's a kind of a trick for that projector to kind of find a way around waiting to be invited because it feels really hard.
Yeah. It's interesting. It reminds me, for some reason, that reminds me of this book. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's called 48 Laws of Power. And I'm not a big fan of, I think it's used in the wrong way a lot of times, but one way that people get to maybe get their result is say you have leadership, right? And you have a really good idea. They don't really want to listen to what you have to say or allow you to like make any kind of decision. Then there's another trick, and it's like tricking them into thinking that your idea is theirs. And then that's how you get your way.
Yeah, there's ways around. Yeah.
Which is kind of similar to what you were just saying. I was like, huh, that's interesting.
There are ways around it. And here's the thing. If you start to embody what makes you happy, and I'll give an example, a small example. I have a nephew, he's 14, and he's amazing theatrically. Like he's on T-Pack, he's on the stage, like he's a dynamite actor.
Yeah.
He sucks at sports, right? But when he goes to the theater, all the kids are like, Jonah, what are you doing? Like he can actually mentor those kids. If he goes to the sidelines at PE at school, he's not picked for the team.
Yeah.
Right? And that can suck. You're not included, but remember where you are included.
Yeah.
Allow that to be, you don't have to be the wise sage at every event. Just know where you can have that playground and be okay with that. And when you have that playground and you show up in that form, you'll never have to be creative about being invited. People will beg you to tell, like, oh my God, they'll literally see you for what you have to offer. And, we mentioned the aura of the generator and the manifesting generator is enveloping. The aura of the projector is what we call honing. So it's like, if it's like coming out in front of them and like piercing.
Okay.
And what this can do is make people, like they can actually see the true essence of someone. They can feel it. They're very intuitive. So they can see beyond the mask. They can see the true identity, which feels really good. Like I attract projectors. I love that they can actually see who I am. That feels good to me. Other people feel, it almost be like if you saw someone naked and you weren't supposed to. Like it becomes like they're like, not repelled, but like,
it's uncomfortable for them.
It's
they don't like being seen in that way.
Uncomfortable. So as a projector, if there are people that seem uncomfortable, just let it go and let yourself know that that's your aura protecting your life force energy. Remember, you don't have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So you don't have the bandwidth to figure out who's comfortable with you and who's not. So you need your aura to do that work for you. So start to surrender. Allow your mind and your ego to not be wanted by everyone, to not be seen wise by everyone, because you're here for a specific thing.
Okay.
To be wise in.
Nice.
Any questions?
I was just going to say, too, with those people that you do see straight to that level, too, with, there is definitely the uncomfortable reaction. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier about us being approached by people sometimes and they just spill their guts. A lot of times, maybe you find it difficult to see if somebody's uncomfortable or not, but I promise you, whenever you have somebody that feels you do that and actually is attracted to it, you will know very
it feels
quickly.
so good.
Because within 2 seconds, they're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, let's just go with this then. And then they're, I have stories about having conversations with people. I've had 2 conversations with Ever. They tell me a story, and at the end of the story, she's like almost here. And I was like, I've never told anybody that. And I'm looking at her like, I don't know why you told me. But it was.
And that's probably because you got the gifts, right? That we all have. Well, at least from looking on that app, like we got gifts, right? And I know
But
that
I've
was
also,
something you and I shared is
Yeah.
that people want to open up to you. If that makes sense.
I've also definitely experienced the uncomfortable side, and it's like so uncomfortable that it's almost like like you said with I think the naked analogy is great because it's almost like you can't really go back once you've let them know that you really see them. It's like if they are uncomfortable, it's like like you said, the first thing you said was like a repel. It's almost a visceral like whoa, you weren't supposed to see that.
Step back a
Yeah,
bit, like
yeah.
you're in my space, and so again, that is the gift of it. And so knowing that some people need that. So like in the next set of a type as a manifester, and that's what I am. And for us manifestors, if you see on your chart it says manifester, our auras are dense and about 2 inches wider than others, and they push. Human design likes to call it repelling. I hate that word. Maybe we do repel. But so to have such a dense aura, to have an energy design that can pierce through that, like the projectors can, it feels so good because it's like, oh, they don't just see me as the human design educator. They don't just see me, you know, for whatever role I'm showing as the professor like I used to be or whatever. Like they see me. You know, they feel the essence of me behind this thick energy barrier that I carry. And so it can feel really amazing to be seen at that depth when not everyone can. So you're right. There's a time and a place. And remember, this is all the wisdom of the body. So it's a very energetic exchange. And there's just a deep knowing when it feels good and it doesn't feel good. So projectors, if it doesn't feel good, let it be because they're not your audience. And don't waste your energy. It's okay not to be accepted by everyone. It's okay if they don't catch your wisdom when you know you could solve their whole life in a 30-minute conversation. Let it go because you can go help someone else that actually is going to receive it. And it's going to be a beautiful exchange and partnership. And with these manifestors, just like the projector, you don't have this sacral energy. What makes the manifestor different than the projector is the manifestor has that throat chakra. So remember we talked about that divine throat chakra like the manifesting generators. This manifestor has power in their voice. And the manifestor's energy, so we don't have the sacral, we kind of collect our energy and burst like a hurricane. Like it will touch everything in its path when the energy pulses on for what we call like an urge. And as a manifestor, we're lucky to have about 3 urges a year. But when the urge comes, it like consumes us. That's all we can think about. Nothing can stand in my way. This thing has got to get done. And the trick with the manifestor is you'll see on your strategy it's to inform because this manifestor is like a hurricane and it's like, okay, I need to get this initiative done and this thing done. And you start to forget that there's other people around you that you're going to impact. So remember the manifesting generator, like, hey, there are people on your team that's got to catch up to you. Be patient. As a manifestor, there's people on your team that are going to be impacted or in your life that are going to be impacted by your decisions. So how to avoid this emotional cleanup on the back end is informing them of what your urge is. Okay. It does not mean ask for permission. So as a manifestor, we've got the generators whose aura is bringing them stuff to respond to, right? You've got the projector that's waiting for the invitation. These manifestors are also responding, but it's to this intuitive guidance. And it feels like, Michelle's seen me manically do this a lot. Like it's like a calling from God. And it's like, this has to happen. And this is what's going to get done. Like I floated and all of a sudden I need to sell my house. Like it's like, this is what's next. Urgently get it done. And before, I would have just been frustrated with anyone that stood in my way. Yeah. Instead, now it's like, okay, let me pause for a second and see who's going to be impacted by this urge. And I'm not trying to sell them on it. I'm not trying to ask for their permission. I'm like, hey, this is what's up. Like if we take for Float Nashville for example, like, hey, this is the initiative I feel the urge to do. This is how we're going to do it. Here are the tools and resources you have. Do you have any questions? Okay. I don't have that tone, but you know what I mean? It's like, I'm there for them, but if I just all of a sudden launch these initiatives without informing, then I'm having to catch them up and it's going to take more energy. Okay. So the trick of the manifestor is practicing that because informing, like literally, any manifestor that's listening to me talk, if you stop and pause and think about your life, you don't inform because it's so hard. Just like the generators, it's hard to wait to respond. It is terrible to have advice as a projector and have to wait to share it. Like it's like the trick of the game. Like we want to do opposite of what makes it easy. So that's where the experiment comes in.
It's like you have everybody. I know we were talking about video games earlier, but it's like you have like a fighter type or something. And they have, again, it's very much like real life, obviously, but they have very potent strengths, but everybody has an Achilles heel. And with that, it's like projectors have tons of unique, gifted talents, but they also have that Achilles heel. And the most important thing is it's not that big a deal that you have it as long as you're aware of it.
Aware. Yeah. So I need to be aware as a manifester that what I'm about to act on is going to have impact. So, hey, everybody, and you just do it through the experiment. Next time you get a big urge to do something, practice the pause. Who am I going to impact? This takes 3 seconds. It doesn't take a week to figure this out. And you just start to inform and practice it. It feels like sandpaper on the inside, but then you'll start to practice not doing it. And so your sign and symbol. So let me back up. Remember the emotions that drive you, that like your body's talking to you? Mm-hmm. As a projector, let's go back to projectors. So projectors, your body, you did not wait for an invitation when you feel bitter. So bitterness is like, oh, they did not ask me to share. When you feel success in the body, like that's like, oh yeah, okay, I shared that and they listened. Like when you feel good about, like there's energy in the body that's positive, but the bitterness is a sign and symbol of like, oops, okay, that's my experiment. I forgot to, and just move on. You're collecting that data. As a manifester, the feeling we feel when we don't inform correctly is anger. And again, I think I mentioned that earlier. That's a really hard one for me to be like, I'm angry, but I really do get rage in my body. And it's very interesting. Like if manifestors don't like to be told what to do. We don't like to be controlled. We're not very good at having bosses. And that rage that comes in my body when I feel blocked is now comical because I'm aware of my Achilles heel, right? Before human design, I never raged on people. I just held it together and my energy was just shit, right? Like,
yeah, I would like to see, it'd be interesting to see you rage. Rachel Benton.
By the way,
That blew my mind.
You got a hard 8 minutes left. Ooh.
Okay, I can do this. So for the manifestors, it's like being able to be like, okay, there's anger in my body. The opposite of that is peace. So when I can execute my urges and it feels so good and peaceful and steady, that's when I know I've informed correctly. When I didn't miss someone, I don't have the emotional cleanup on the back end. So same thing with projectors and manifestors is it's really important to do the rest, honor the rest cycles. For the manifestor, your kind of intuitive hits from your next urge are going to come from the rest cycles. So reframing that the resting is really where you're getting quiet enough to hear the next urge come through. I think that's why I'm so passionate about flotation therapy, because it creates an environment where I can rest. Floating 1 hour in the tank is like 4 hours of restoration on the body. So it's really important for these people who are non-sacral to get that. The final type we'll touch on, only 1% of the population is what we call a reflector. So if your chart says reflector,
only 1%?
Only 1%. They are so rare. And if you are a reflector, if you run a chart of someone in your life and they're a reflector, they're literally a mirror for you. And they're a reflection of their environment. So if they're shitty, you're shitty. Like if they're on your team and that you have issues with them, there's issues in the team, in the business, in the organization.
It's not specifically them.
It's not them. They're reflecting back their environment. So these reflectors, it's really important for you to know that your environment matters. You can curate your environment. You can take things, like I have a stone in my hand. Like you can take things with you that feel like home to you. So like, yeah, it's great for us to all be able to create our own environment, but some of us are stuck in those W-2 jobs and you have to go to that terrible workplace because you have bills to pay. But taking in things that your sensory environment appreciates, whether it's a plant, a candle, a stone, have your rituals that can come with you to help take the magnitude of that off of you. But the aura of the reflector is like kind of like a duck, like how the water falls and the water rolls off the duck's back. The reflector is built with this aura that like takes things in and drops it off. So they're here to experience life without attachment and just with like, interesting. So if they can look at life as like, interesting. So if they have disappointment, that's their sign and symbol that they need to shift environments or that they're trying to get too attached to the outcome of their environment. Right?
Yeah.
They're becoming the environment. Let the environment roll off of you.
Sweet.
And then you'll have surprise. Like almost like watching a movie, like, oh shit, that's cool. But don't have to get attached to what doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
You can have, through awareness of this Achilles heel, like you mentioned, the ability to hone and skill and curate these environments so you're not always just thrown off by them.
That's really cool.
So even something like lighting candles.
Yes,
Like,
if you think about
not even like a Himalayan salt, like nothing like that. But like at my house, like my fiance comes home with candles that I like the smell of, but just once that smell hits me, I almost immediately feel like better.
I would encourage you to have natural candles with essential oils. Other fake fragrance can actually be bad for the body, right? But the essential oil triggers the brain in different ways. But if you can reflect on those 6 senses of the body and be like, what did
Like
my
that sparks
senses
something
like?
there, yeah.
Yeah, think about like I get dopamine hits from sparkling water because my body loves carbonation, right? So it's like, what can I bring with me that my body loves? And that's for all of us in this human experience. I love soap that smells really good. So washing my hands is like a moving meditation. I spend money on really high quality soap, and the way it feels in my hands when I'm washing in that warm water, it is like a 3-second, actually it's probably like 30 seconds to a minute of like, I am just with my hands in that water. And that's a moving meditation. It's a small moment in my day where I come back to the moment. And no matter what type you are, being able to ground in the moment, that's where peace is. That's where joy is. That's where love is. That's where anxiety is not. That's where fear is not. So thinking about your sensory system and how can I bring the things that my senses love into every day is a mindful way to live and a very embodied way to live to kind of tie it all back to that embodiment thing.
Yeah. I
I
do
think
got
that's perfect.
I think so as
bring
well.
it into a universal,
Yeah.
one universal wrap up after all those distinguishing trees. I think that's awesome.
I do got a question. So say you're a generator or you're this or you're that. Can you have traits or whatever of,
That's a good
a
question.
projector or
Well, what's really interesting is the nuances in the system. So in the beginning, when you're playing with this, play with it just how it says.
Okay.
Where you can find, like I had a lady that was in one of my classes and she was a generator and she's like, I'm just attaching to the project. I feel like a projector.
I definitely was for
Okay.
myself, same
And
thing.
her profile numbers, she had this is really deep, so please don't let me lose anyone, but her profile numbers, so your profile numbers in your chart are your personality distinctions, and there's 6 different variations. She happened to be a 2 and a 5, and both of those numbers are projected on. So remember, Joe, you have 2 in you, and I was like, the 2 can't really clearly see themselves. It's what people tell you are becomes your reflection. So that's a projection. And then the 5th line, like I'm a 5th line. Whatever you project onto me, it's like you ask me to play a role. So people are always signing me up for roles, which I love to teach. I love to perform. But it's like that can feel very projected. So
Of
like
course.
those little nuances can make you feel more like a type than another, but really your type is where you're going to thrive. So if you say generator, now if your birth time's wrong, then it can change, right? So try to get your birth time. People
Wouldn't that be some shit?
yeah,
Somebody
my
just wrote it down wrong.
dad. Well, my dad in 1954 in Tennessee, they did not take birth times. And he's so into this. But like there's 2 options for him. So I did all the different times of the day. It changes twice. And it's really what does he intuitively feel like he is. Right?
Interesting. I think
You got like a minute.
I think I'm good on that. But it's funny when you said that when Ozzy was born, I had my timer next to me. And like as soon as she popped out, I was like,
you bitches aren't messing up my kids' birth
no,
time.
I don't know. I thought it was because I knew
We
it would play
know.
into stuff like
It
this.
does, yeah.
But anyways,
I did that in the delivery room with my daughter. They wanted to break my water, and I knew she would come fast. And so I'm like, got her human design. I'm like, what is it? What is it if she's in?
You're like, hold on,
it was the
hold on.
same
Okay,
no
come
matter
on.
what. So I'm like, just get her out. Just break the water and be done with it.
We're
It's not
good.
going to
They're
change.
like, what is she? What
I
is
know.
she doing?
We're over here like running. They're like, this woohoo
yeah, that's
lady.
funny as shit.
All right, 45.
Okay.
All right. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. Did you get everything
I did,
covered
and
that you want
find
to?
me. Like, if there's anyone that this really lights up to you, I want to go deeper with you. We can do it on Zoom. You can come find me in Mountain Juliet or at Float Nashville. Like, look me up. Human Design Stuff's at Float Nashville too, or at embodiedabundancehd.com, because my gift and the reason I want to bring this to the world is not so you know the nuances of the system, but so you can start to trust your body, so you can move with ease in your life.
Awesome. You're amazing, Rachel. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And we're
Thanks
stoked
for
to have
having
you
me.
back eventually. We're going to do it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Love you guys.
Take care. That was great.
Okay, we did it.
5 seconds to spare.